Zheng meditated in his room at night. He wasn't a person with especially strong persistence, but the many times of life and death experiences had turned him into a person with determination. Since he had made the decision to kill every person in this facility, he wouldn't alter his plan no matter what. Now, he only needed to think over how to kill them and how to leave in safety. Too bad there was no way to contact the outside. This was the most critical weak point. He couldn't know how was the team at this time. Did any accidents happen? Or was it God who masked this facility? If it was the former, Team China might be in great danger. If it was the latter, he needed to get in contact with the team before the plan to stealing the prototype T-virus could proceed. Zheng sighed. He looked at the data regarding the T-virus on the reports in his hand. The researchers handed these reports to him at night per his agreement with the corporation. Unfortunately, these reports were composed of chemical formulas that he couldn't understand even a bit. It was better if Xian got these, but they were effectively useless in his hands. Aside from the reports, the researchers also compiled the data from the tests of his cells and gave him a copy. As he received the report and thought of the people locked in the room with the liquor and the 2 people who were dissected alive, he couldn't help but wanted to tear these researchers apart. Of course, his rationality forced him to just take the reports off them, then close the door to his room. How can I get in contact with them? The simplest method is probably leaving this facility. However, the corporation certainly won't allow me to leave. Unless I start the plan now or sneak out, Zheng murmured to himself. He was about to look over the data of his cells when a voice faintly appeared in his mind. Several seconds later, the voice became clear. Zheng, can you hear my voice? Zheng, answer if you hear my voice. It was Lan's voice. She was continuously asking this question as if she was making a phone call. Zheng immediately answered her through his mind. Yes. I can hear you. What happened? Why couldn't I get in contact with you? Did you get attacked by the corporation? Or? Lan was pleasantly surprised. No, we are fine. Nothing special happened. However, this facility seems to be masked by something. I kept trying to probe inside with my psyche force, but it was blocked by something. This masking only became weaker just now. I don't know how long it takes before its strength returns. We might not be able to communicate for long. Zheng paused for a moment then said. Thank you. Don't worry, I am also fine here. Connect me to Xian. Lan complied with a bit of disappointment. A moment later, Xian's apathetic voice appeared in Zheng's mind. This masking is, as you said, might be God's doing to increase difficulty. Otherwise we could see everything in the facility with just a scan. I speculate that we cannot continue our communication for long, so I am going to make it short. I have hacked into Umbrella Corporation's internal network. The data shows the corporation indeed has the prototype T-virus. However, the data on the virus and its location isn't at the research facility you are in. They are in a weapon testing base next to the facility. There is a total of 7,000 guards in these 2 places and some bioweapons. There might even be a nemesis. Xian said. Zheng listened quietly then asked. What do you mean? What are you trying to say? Xian continued as if he was talking to himself. Alice is currently undergoing body repair in the facility. It will take about 14 days before she wakes up. I will have Jill go take her away at that time, just like the original movie plot. Your task is to threaten the Umbrella Corporation officials in the research facility to let Alice leave safely. We cannot let her get in danger before we finish the bonus mission. Secondly, after she left the building, I need you to start kill every person you see, be it researchers or guards. You not only have to kill people but also destroy the facility. Destroy everything inside, and when you have done enough damage, you will lure the guards from the weapon testing base over. We will take the chance to ambush the base. In other words, the more chaos you cause, the safer we will be in the weapon testing base. This is my whole plan. Zheng took a deep breath. Okay. Then I will do as you said and kill everyone I see. Understood. The voice in his mind gradually quieted down until it completely disappeared. He knew the contact was interrupted. At the same time, the other part of Team China also knew their soul link was broken. Lan looked at her watch and said. That was only 5 minutes. The masking is coming back. The other side. Hung asked. We can't use soul link, but can you use psyche scan? We should at least draw out the map of the weapon testing base. Lan shook her head with a bitter smile. No. Everything is clouded with a layer of black mist when I scan over. I can't see anything inside. If I try to penetrate this mist with my psyche force gets dissipated easily. And it would make me faint if I continue for a while. Cheng Xiao laughed while the others sighed. Don't worry. Zheng is stronger than all of us combined. I don't think he will get subdued or dissected that easily, even if he's in their research facility. Or was this not what you are worrying? Are you worrying Umbrella Corporation is going to seduce him with women? Like send him an obedient, blonde lady? Haha. If that's the case, then we ought to be worried. Zheng would exclaim at Cheng Xiao's intuition if he were here to hear this. The corporation did indeed assign a sexy blonde woman to him. The corner of Lan's mouth twitched and she smiled. How can that be? He's the G-virus carrier in their eyes. Aren't they afraid of creating a mutated monster if they so easily give him a woman? Don't worry. It's not possible. Cheng Xiao was excited to see such a reaction from Lan. How's that not possible? Look at Xian thinking so seriously. Zheng probably said something out of the ordinary. He definitely accepted the lady bribe from the corporation. Man, this dude is so lucky, he can accept a blonde for just being a bait. I heard those women are blonde even down there. Pa. Yin Kong swung her arm, then there was the sound of an impact. It was like a metal stick had struck Cheng Xiao's face. He was sent flying back several meters as he said the word there and smashed into the wall. Lan didn't see Cheng Xiao's misery because she turned to Xian at once. Xian was indeed having a strange expression, like he had encountered a question. When Lan was about to ask, Xian said, "Don't worry. Even if they were to bribe him with women, his indecisive personality wouldn't allow him to get into any kind of relationship in such a short period of time. What I am curious is that he so decisively accepted my plan to kill everyone he sees." The others also got curious. Kappa asked, "You mean Zheng wouldn't agree to killing everyone in the facility?" Xian shook his head. "No. He's a mature leader now. Even if what he has to do contradicts with his beliefs, he would make his choices for the team when it comes to the team's interests. The thing I am curious about is the decisiveness he showed. Normally he would ponder for a long time and frequently suspect me. This decisiveness doesn't fit his personality. Which means that he's either brainwashed by Umbrella Corporation or something happened in the facility that made him want to kill everyone there. These are the only two possibilities I can think of." Zheng buried his killing intent deep down his heart the next day. He cooperated with Umbrella Corporation's researches and went back and forth between his room and the laboratory. His performance was decent, so the researchers gradually got to know him. He also learned a lot about the corporation from these researchers. This facility was advertised as the headquarters to the public, but it was only one of the several largest facilities they had. Not even the researchers knew where the true headquarters was. Rumors said the true headquarters is located in a desert. However, that's just rumors. This facility is the largest one people know about. This was one of the rumors Zheng heard. Then there were the reports regarding his cells. No matter how the researchers experimented, normal people injected with his cells would only strengthen their bodies to twice a regular person's. Which was on par with injecting just dragon blood. This phenomenon caused a lot of headaches for the researchers. If Zheng was as weak to begin with, they could attribute it to the G virus being weak. However, he showed strength that was 10 times that of a normal person and perhaps even more. This signified their research was going at the wrong direction. Normal people withstanding Zheng cells from going out of control was one question, but the researchers couldn't even extract the potential of the G virus. 10 days passed with similar results, which led to the disappearance of several researchers. A few dozen new researchers took their place. Zheng watched apathetically as a bystander on the disappearance and coming of the researchers. These people were going to die anyway. There was no difference dying to the corporation or to him. And because he behaved well during these days, he was allowed to move among a large area. He could visit Alice freely now. This main character was submerged in a nutrition liquid. She still needed several more days to recover. The day she regained conscious would be the day Team China's attack began. It's soon. Zheng lay on the bed and murmured. The time was at night. The masking on the facility became weaker every day at this time. He also only had 5 minutes a day to communicate with the rest of the team via soul link. "Zheng, can you hear me?" Lan's voice gradually became clear and appeared in his mind. Zheng smiled. "Lan, I have told you many times not to break in too early. It will consume your psyche force. Are you an idiot? Psyche force takes much longer to recover, unlike stamina." Lan giggled. "I didn't begin early. I contacted you right on time. Stop thinking that I am always so concerned about you. Xian has obtained the map to the facilities. Let me connect your minds." Several seconds later, Xian's calm voice appeared. "I have cracked the map of the facilities. I am going to send it to your mind now. The highest executive in these two buildings is a board member named Richard. You can hold him under duress on the day Alice wakes. The rest will depend on your follow-up. Destroy these two buildings." Zheng didn't say a word. He was memorizing the maps that appeared in his mind. Several minutes later, the maps disappeared. Their 5 minutes were up. Zheng recalled the maps to familiarize himself with them. Time never stopped. Zheng could get in touch with more and more things within the facility due to his good behavior. Aside from the most classified items like the model of the Nemesis or the newest liquors, he saw the specimen of the zombies infected with T-virus and their internal organs. The most shocking specimen, and the one that made him felt anger, was a girl about 8 to 9 years old. She floated peacefully inside a container. Her lower body consisted of skinless red muscle like that of the liquors. The researchers explained she was the product of genetic transfer. They injected a liquor cells into her and part of her body mutated. The result was this half-human half-liquor. Zheng's eyes turned red as he saw everything. He didn't say a word and just turned around and left the specimen display room. The steel handle that he grabbed was crushed. He lived the next few days like this and counted the time until Alice would wake. He had seen too much. His heart was filled with anger. He hadn't felt such anger since the battle against Team India. If he didn't let the anger out, he was afraid it would hurt him. Fortunately, he was allowed to see something other than the specimen. Umbrella Corporation had hidden surveillance cameras. He found some videos from the time of the second movie. Videos such as scenes of Team Devil massacring zombies and the power his clone displayed. Inside the video, Team Devil was on a bus. They hadn't brought out their sky sticks at the time. Maybe they were simply toying with Team China and didn't catch up to them. When they encountered a large swarm of zombies, It was clone Zheng who fought them alone. He stood on the street in front of the swarm of zombies and lickers. A pair of bat wings spread from his back and he was holding a two-handed sword engulfed in a dark flame. His image seemed like that of a demon. Clone Zheng had powers unimaginable to Zheng. When the two of them fought, he barely entered the unlock mode before he killed Zheng. In the video, he swung the sword and the dark flame spread in a cone. All zombies and lickers that came in contact were devoured by the flame and burned to ashes. His speed was also extremely fast. He didn't seem like he made any movements, but he was already at the other end of the screen in the next second. This speed surpassed Zheng in his explosion mode. What gave Zheng a chill was clone Zheng didn't seem to put in all his efforts. He casually swung the sword as he flew. The only word to describe this battle was leisurely. Zheng rewatched the video dozens of times. He found that he couldn't discover any weakness on clone Zheng. The movements, speed, power, and even the state of his mind were perfect. This was the first time Zheng questioned the power of destruction. He didn't know if he could defeat this powerful clone. He wasn't sure even if he were to use destruction. Finally, the day that Alice woke up had come. The middle-aged man left the experiments on the G-virus and headed to Alice. In his words, Alice was the most outstanding test subject aside from Zheng. The corporation wanted to keep Alice even after they obtained Zheng. Zheng didn't go to see her. He put on the 4 mithril rings, then followed the map Xian gave him and headed to the executive office. Zheng stopped hiding his anger as he walked the path. He wasn't walking too fast. Every person that he walked by felt a strange pressure and instinctively stepped away from him. It wasn't until he reached the corridor leading to the executive office before the guard stopped him. "Pardon me. Please show your pass." Several guards stopped him and one of them said. Zheng quietly estimated the time, then smiled at the guards. A crimson light flashed across from Zheng's hand before the guards reacted. Then they watched in terror as their upper body fell off. Zheng had already stepped past them. "I said all of you here must die," he said as he gritted his teeth. He walked toward the office with Tiger's soul in his hand. A dangerous aura surrounded him. It was rare to see such aura from him, but things wouldn't end so easily when it did. Zheng slashed the sword across everyone he saw on the way. His destructive power was greatly increased with Tiger's soul on hand, especially with its light blade. The only sword he had encountered that could counter the light blade was Excalibur. Otherwise, the light blade formed by Chi could cut through everything. The sharp siren rang after he killed the 27th person. He was less than 100 meters from the office. At the end of the corridor was a red wooden door. Zheng had entered unlock mode. He could tell that there were dozens of guards behind the door, judging by the sound of their breathing, heartbeats, and the friction from their movements. He could even tell their positions. Zheng smiled coldly. He put the dragon's hard necklace on, then pushed the door open and walked in. There were indeed dozens of guards behind the door. All of them wore full armor with gas masks and held assault rifles aiming at him. Pot, pot, pot. An old man in casual attire sitting behind the guards clapped his hands with a smile. "Good. Your combat strength is incredible. I have seen everything that happened on your way here. I am curious, where did your weapon come from?" In the video, the weapon suddenly appeared in your hand. "Oh, and the 4 rings also." Zheng gave him a cold smile. "I don't have any obligation to answer your questions. However, since you are going to do something for me in a while, I will answer you. This weapon and the rings were in this ring that you took from me. Now it's your turn. Where are the surveillance videos?" The old man showed a surprised expression. He gave a serious look at the ring, then laughed. "If what you said is true, then we have done something stupid by handing a ring more valuable than you back. But it's all good. The ring is still here. The surveillance videos are right behind you." He pointed to the door behind Zheng. Zheng turned his head around and saw monitors embedded over the door. The old man could see these monitors from where he was sitting. The screens showed the corridors he just walked past and all the dead bodies lying there. "Then you are useless." Zheng turned back around and smiled coldly. He slashed Tiger's soul horizontally. The guards also opened fire when he moved the sword. The dozens of rifles instantly shredded the door behind him and pierced countless holes on the wall. Zheng finished the slash. Everything the light blade moved past was cut in half. Bodies of the guards who were firing as they moved began to slide off from their lower body. Those who were standing still took 2 or 3 more seconds before their bodies fell off. The scene was terrifying for normal people. A translucent barrier enveloped Zheng. All the bullets stopped at the barrier. The dragon's heart protected him from the dozens of rifles. The old man looked dumbfounded. He never imagined the situation would develop like this. Zheng was still 8 meters away from the guards. He couldn't run faster than the bullets. That was why the old man looked calm and in control. However, Zheng didn't even need to get close to the guards. A slash with that red sword from distance cut the guards in half like there was an invisible blade. And a barrier that you would only see in sci-fi movies appeared. Everything happened beyond his imagination. The old man opened his mouth wide and stared at Zheng as if this was the first time he saw him. Zheng ignored him, then turned back around to the monitors. "Switch the locations, go to where Alice is." The old man shivered and his mind came back from the shock. He was obviously scared of dying. He quickly pointed a remote at the monitors. The screens jumped several times, then a healing center appeared. However, the area was in a mess. Researchers were lying on the floor moaning. A man wanted to get up, but he seemed beaten up and couldn't do it. Zheng then said, "Switch locations." Show all the corridors going from the healing center to the entrance of the facility. Old man was obedient. He kept switching the surveillance cameras and finally got to the entrance of the facility. A blonde woman was standing there. 100 guards were pointing their guns at her. This scene was so similar to when he opened the door. A black sedan drove over and stopped outside the guards. A man and woman got off the sedan. It was Carlos and Jill. Carlos handed a piece of document to the guard leader. Jill walked past them to Alice. She said something in a low voice, then grabbed her hand. They walked to the car. Carlos also got on after them and the car drove away. Jean watched until they reached a roadblock. Then he turned back to the old man. Call them, let them pass. The old man didn't pick up the phone. He let out a sigh of relief and said, let them pass? Do you think they can leave the roadblock safely? I can guarantee the paper they have is questionable. It will let them in, but leaving is not so easy. You are right, I can let them leave immediately, but what about my own safety? I don't think you will let me go. I am not going to make the call until my safety is guaranteed. It doesn't matter if you kill me. If I have to die either way, why would I want to die after being used by you? Zheng smiled. He took off his necklace and threw it on the table in front of the old man. Once the old man picked it up, he grabbed a rifle from the floor and fired at him. That scared the old man, then he realized the barrier. Good enough? The dragon's hard necklace can create a barrier to protect you. You are safe now, Zheng said with a cold smile. Old man looked over the necklace, then took out a handgun from the drawer. He carefully aimed it at his hand and pulled the trigger. The bullet was indeed blocked by a translucent barrier. He let out a sigh of relief, then picked up the phone. Zheng ignored him. He went back to the monitors. He could see that the guards received a phone call, then let the black sedan leave. After the sedan drove far away, turned around. Sorry, I lied. Zheng slashed Tiger's soul across and the old man's head fell on the table. His expression paused in shock. The necklace only blocks sci-fi weapons. Tiger's soul isn't one. He picked the necklace back up and put it on his neck. Then he took out the bracelet of Anubis. Let's begin. Everyone here needs to die. Zheng left the corridor leading to the office. He didn't know the current situation in the facility. However, the non-stop siren signaled that the whole facility was on alert. What he needed to do was make the disturbance even more intense and attract everyone. He would then kill them all. Zheng summoned the Anubis army as he walked. He had enough blood energy to summon 1,000 at this point. This 3-meter-tall monsters with a dog's head and holding large swords packed the corridor. They were waiting for Zheng's commands. Kill. Kill every person you see. Zheng took a deep breath, then shouted. He pointed Tiger's soul to the inner part of the facility. The Anubis warriors howled. They ran along the corridor. Their bodies seemed large and bulky, but their movements were extremely nimble. The warriors also had the abilities of the mummy guards in that they defied gravity and ran along the walls and ceiling. In a lobby at the end of the corridor, over 100 guards stood nervously on alert. They aimed their guns at corridor. The whole facility's defense was activated as soon as they learned that the G-virus carrier went berserk and started killing. An endless supply of guards entered the facility and occupied the important lobbies. They had confirmed a board member was killed, so the higher-ups sent orders to destroy the G-virus carrier before he caused more damage. The guards were wearing armor similar to hazmat suits. Their guns had been swapped to the biggest models. Several also carried RPGs. Over 100 of them guarded by the corridor. No matter how strong the G-virus carrier was, the human body was still flesh. Barriers similar to this one was placed throughout the facility. Be careful. Open fire immediately if you see anyone come around the corner. Don't leave a thing alive. A man in suit shouted to the guards. He held a device on his hand and shouted at it. Jack, the G-virus carrier isn't here yet. Don't activate the Nemesis. We might be able to God. What is that? As the first Anubis warrior ran across the ceiling, a swarm of them followed. The dog-head monsters all came out from the corner of the corridor. The guards were shocked for a moment, then they pulled the triggers as they cried. Everyone seemed terrified. It wasn't only because they were monsters but also their numbers. The first warrior didn't get destroyed by their guns because the guards were shocked at the time. It ran a long distance on the ceiling before they opened fire. The gunshots crushed its legs, but by the time it dropped down from the ceiling, the legs had reconstructed. These monsters couldn't die as long as their heads weren't destroyed. The guards relaxed for a moment seeing its legs destroyed, so the Anubis warrior was able to charge into them after recovering. The large sword cut through the guard nearest to it. A head fell and rolled on the floor. Several guards near him cried out and fired at its chest. Sand burst out in the air. However, that wasn't the correct target because the Anubis warriors weren't human. The sword continued to slash across, killing one and injuring several. Another guard was cut in half on his neck. Moans of pain were spreading from the group. Hold them. The man in suit yelled as he ran away because a never-ending army of these monsters were coming out from the corner of the corridor. Gradually, the 100 guards couldn't hold them off anymore. The Anubis warriors weren't just running at them from the floor but also on the walls and ceiling. Most importantly, their bodies were formed by sand. They wouldn't disappear as long as their heads weren't crushed. They were breaking through the guards' defense. The rest of the guards hesitated when they saw the man started running away. Dozens of them also wanted to run, which weakened their defense even more. The decrease in firepower caused the line of defense to collapse at last. Those with RPGs immediately fired their missiles. Multiple explosions followed. Near 100 of these warriors got killed. The guards fell forward to avoid the gust of wind and sand. Yet, they opened their eyes to a still never-ending number of monsters coming from the corner. The nearest one charged into these guards. Over 10 guards were killed several slashes later. The remaining guards all ran after the man ensued. The man turned his head around to see situation. When he saw the Anubis warriors broke into his people, he yelled at the device almost with insanity. Support. We require support. A lot of monsters appeared in the corridor. Images have been uploaded. We need support. Get all the backups outside the facility here. Several men in the surveillance room also looked in shock. They had a clear view of the 1,000 monsters through the monitors. Among these monsters was the G-virus carrier. What confused them was how the G-virus carrier got along with these monsters peacefully. The monsters seemed like Egyptian mythical creatures. They were massacring guards who couldn't run away fast enough. Over 80 guards were chopped into paste. Support. Send all the backups from the weapon testing center over. This place is getting run over. Over 1,000 monsters are charging through. There aren't many important things in the center aside from some data. Leave 100 guards and send the rest over. One of the men yelled at the communication device. He seemed to be panicking. The others also panicked. One person picked up the device and said, "Release Nemesis number 3 to number 7. Bring them to the central lobby. Everything in the facility is important experiment subjects and there are hundreds of evolved lickers frozen underneath. No one is going to live if the power goes out." Zhen wasn't simply heading toward the central lobby. He was destroying everything on the way. Tiger's Soul had impressive attack range and the light blade was extremely sharp. He ran behind the Anubis warriors and slashed at the walls and machines, leaving ruins and sparks on all the places he ran by. The ruin was extending toward the central lobby. He could totally destroy the power system by the time he reached the central lobby, which was what these men feared. These men in suit were obviously higher-ups in Umbrella Corporation. Their orders quickly reached the weapon testing center and the guards readied themselves. Several thousand guards formed lines and jogged. 10 minutes later, only 100 were left in the center along with some half-human weapons. This was the most fragile time of this weapon testing base. Not far from the base, the rest of Team China stood in a pitch-black area. Xian looked at the base and said, "Begin. Gondo, go destroy its exterior." A 4-meter-tall humanoid robot appeared next to Xian after his words. This robot had been standing in this darkness. Its eyes lit up and a very faint light glowed on its body. The robot took a heavy step and jumped about 10 meters. Its body bended backward as it began a transformation. In just a second, the robot transformed into a jet fighter with a streamlined body. They could hear a cry of excitement coming from the jet. 2 streams of electricity burst out from its back. The plane sped toward the weapon testing center. Once it reached within 100 meters, it fired several mini-missiles from the wings. The missiles bombed the exterior walls. The concrete was blasted in the explosions. There was another cry coming from the jet. The jet flipped again as it landed and turned into a walker type. It is space shuttle more than a jet. Its flexibility, the speed from the electric burst system, and the extended energy from the conversion of chi make it equivalent to a BB rank or even a rank robot. However, there's also a limitation. The limited ammunition can only sustain a mini battle like this one. Though with the addition of the Dragon's Heart, it's our high-tech trump card before its energy depletes. Xian said to the others as he watched the firework. The rest of Team China also watched from afar. The robot switched between its 3 modes liberally and unloaded its firepower. The exterior of the center was engulfed in a sea of fire. Several Gatling cannon that came up also got destroyed. The robot transformed back into humanoid form. It brought out a 3-meter chainsaw and began cutting the steel wall. Sparks flew all over as the robot opened up a large hole on the wall. Then it fired several missiles inside. Kampa and Wang Xiao ran toward the center. Qian, Yinkong, Cheng Xiao, and Hung followed. Zero and Lan stayed in place. Gondo and Zero stay in place and defend. Take down any jets or helicopters that come. Gondo switch to fighter mode and patrol in the air. Shoot down any bombers or missiles. Zero give him fire support. Everyone else follow our plan. Xian flipped his hands and 2 gauze pistols slid down. At the same time, a battle between men and monsters erupted in the research facility. Every lobby in the facility was filled with guards as backup from the weapon testing center arrived. These guards all wore hazmat suit-like armors and carried military-grade weapons. The Anubis warriors were finally stopped by their fire. However, several hundred guards had been killed by their sword by this time. There were only 2 more lobbies between them and the central lobby. The guard leader looked at the thick layer of sand on the corridor and said to a device. "Targets cleared. Squad 2 staying alert. Remain alert. You must keep the monsters outside the central lobby." In the surveillance room, several men in black suit received multiple similar messages. The monsters were blasted into sand. The number of monsters they killed were over 1,000, but there were also several hundred casualties. "Where is the G-virus carrier? Why can't I find him?" As they were relieved to hear the monsters being stopped, one of the men suddenly cried. The others immediately began flipping through the cameras. However, Zhen was nowhere to be seen in any location. He disappeared from their surveillance. The men just took out their communicating device when a cry came from a lobby. Zhen crawled out from the venting duct. He dropped down among the guards. Tiger's Soul swung in a full circle. Over 100 guards watched in shock as their bodies got cut in halves. A heavy scent of blood filled the area in a 10-meter radius around Zheng. The lobby had a total of 200 guards. Zheng landed in the most crowded spot. As the bodies of these guards were still sliding off, the rest still stood in place. Zheng jumped up and stepped on the head of a guard. He leaped forward again before the guard's body fell. It wasn't until now that those whose body fell cried in despair and madness. They noticed they only had half their bodies left, but their guns were still in their hands. These men pulled the triggers with despair. Zheng slashed the sword downward from midair, cutting through a 10-meter area in front of him. 10 more guards either died or injured. The light blade also cut a crevice into the floor. He landed then charged into the guards before they could even react. The men in the surveillance room felt a chill swept over their bodies. 200 fully armed guards were all killed in less than 30 seconds. Their deaths were miserable as their upper bodies were still moaning on the floor. It took a few minutes for the loss of blood to kill them. Zheng's combat strength was even more terrifying. He wasn't even damaged after killing 200 guards. If Umbrella Corporation had known of such strength, they wouldn't treat him the same. They would at least not let him stay in the facility without sufficient defense. Zheng picked up the communication device from a pool of blood and said, "Rinse your necks and wait for me. All of you have to die." He gripped his hand and crushed the device. A man in the surveillance room yelled, "Don't destroy the facility anymore. Evolved liquors are frozen underneath." "Hey." Another man patted his shoulder. "We have no other way. Let the Nemesis go fight him. It just needs to delay him for 10 minutes. Activate self-destruction. The mini-nuclear bomb can destroy the facility and the evolved liquors inside. We will leave on helicopters." "Leave? To where? There are so many important materials in this facility. Almost all the evolved liquors of the company are here. Even if we can get out alive, the company will clean us up if all the evolved liquors are destroyed. Where can we go?" The man shouted. His eyes were bloody red. "Just activate the facility's self-destruction. We will go to the roof and take the helicopters. Dying to a gun is better than dying to the liquor's claws." Zheng wasn't aware his strength had terrified the executives of the corporation. He continued destroying the facility as he moved toward the central lobby. He thought about summoning another round of Anubis army, but he had already used up all the blood energy in a ring. He couldn't summon them if he wanted to continue using instant destruction. And it seemed like his goal was reached now that the backup from the weapon testing center had come over. There was not much value to summoning again. Zheng mumbled to himself, then continued running toward the lobby. As he made a turn around the corridor, several mini-missiles struck him. These 4 missiles were extremely fast. They exploded before he could react. It was too late for Zheng to run. The speed from instant destruction and sorrow could get him out of the explosion, but activation still needed a tiny fraction of a second. The missiles had reached him. He only had time to move into a defensive position when a bright light and loud sound exploded. A violent shockwave followed. The force broke his stability. He was instantly thrown backward. Zheng flipped backward several meters and smashed into the metallic wall. Bang! He printed a human figure on the wall. Fortunately, the dragon's heart was effective and blocked the explosion and shrapnel with its translucent barrier. However, its shine weakened visibly. Zheng coughed out a few mouthfuls of blood after he got down on the ground. The explosion didn't injure him directly, but the shockwave caused damage to his internals. Any other normal person would have died from that shockwave. It looked like the dragon's heart couldn't negate high-tech weapons completely. Shockwaves could go through its barrier, which meant it was a flawed defensive item. This weakness was fatal to a normal person without another defensive mean. All these thoughts crossed his mind in an instant. He didn't have time to ponder more during a battle as large bullets were coming at him. Judging from the power of these bullets on the wall, there was definitely a Gatling cannon on the firing end. He was too familiar with this weapon. Zheng held off the bullets for only a few seconds. The dragon's heart's energy was almost empty. He had to channel his chi into it. But the powerful bullets of the Gatling cannon also meant that fast consumption of his chi. He stopped hesitating and drained both chi and blood energy from his rings to enter instant destruction. Saru. Zheng charged 20 meters with imperceptible speed. The bullets only hit where he was standing. Then he used Rankyaku toward the direction of the central lobby. Almost a dozen cries followed and some bestial roars. When he landed, he found out there were several hundred guards and 4 Nemesis carrying RPGs on the left shoulder and Gatling cannons with their right arm. Their sizes were smaller than the Nemesis, 1, in the previous movie. Still, these Nemesis were much bigger than a normal human and they wore thick alloy armors. The Rankyaku cut through 10 guards but only ignited sparks as it hit a Nemesis. The defense of these armors were much higher than the previous movie. Zheng's speed was too fast. These 500 guards only just pulled the trigger after he landed back on the floor. The countless bullets hit the barrier. They could only hear the sound of shells dropping on the floor. However, when the Nemesis began firing the Gatling cannons, Zheng had to use Saru again to escape. He spent at least 30% of his chi in just those 2 seconds. Dense gunfire wasn't only useful against the Anubis army but was also threatening to him. He was lucky to still have the dragon's heart, or he would definitely get killed when being outnumbered by so many. What should I do? I can't get stopped here. Zheng smiled bitterly to himself. He looked at the ceiling and muttered. The map Xian gave him didn't show any venting ducts leading to the central lobby. And the central lobby was the routing point of the important corridors. As long as the guards defend this place, He wouldn't be able to enter other corridors. He was stuck here unless he killed every person in the central lobby. What should I do? I don't have any heavy weapon to kill all of them. Do I have to rely on destruction? If I use destruction here, I will simply get stuck again on the next wave of defense. F***ck. I should have brought a heavy weapon. Zheng muttered to himself. He transferred the plasma grenades to the dimensional bag when he decided to be bait. The other heavy weapons were also in the bag. He thought there was nothing to be afraid of in this world with his power and tiger's soul. Never had he imagined he would get blocked off by several hundred guards. The dragon's heart was a cheap item. Its flaw was too fatal. A thought came to his mind and he quickly brought out the Book of the Dead. He rarely used this book since he had gotten stronger. Its summoning ability was weaker than the bracelet of Anubis. Its offensive magic was weaker than him in explosion and destruction while consuming blood energy. However, aside from summoning and offensive magic, it also contained utility magic such as transforming the terrain. They relied on this magic when they escaped from Cairo in the battle against Team India. It was the only spell he learned from Tenji. Zheng felt a mix of emotions. He held up the book and recited. The black book drained his blood energy, then he felt the floor trembled as if there was an earthquake. A set of staircase rose from the floor. The magic didn't only target rocks and sand. It seemed like all kinds of floors were included in its range. A few dozen guards stood on where the floor rose. Zheng slashed them in halves with this opportunity. He charged up the stairs in explosion. Then jumped down to the group still on the floor. On the other battlefield, Team China pushed forward without any obstacles. Everyone's abilities were unleashed to their fullest under Xian's commands. He was on par with and maybe even surpassed Zheng in this respect. However, his tactics inherited his usual methods of deciding by risks and interests. He used people as baits, traded energy in the dragon's heart for killing the guards, sending Yinkong to assassinate when it wouldn't take too much time, and had Kampa destroy a whole room if he confirmed there was nothing valuable inside. Zheng's tactics on the other hand were formed from his numerous life and death experiences. The group pushed deep into the weapon testing center. They had cleared its defensive system. Hung destroyed the robots with +3 magic-infused arrows. No one was injured on the whole way aside from Hung feeling limp from seeing blood. Xian looked over a stack of documents in his hand and a vial of thick liquid. Team China is strong, but there is still a lot of room for improvement. I have a fair idea of your strengths. I am look forward to your performance in the next team battle. Now, we should leave the center. Yinkong, go notify Zheng that we see a self-destruction counter on the main computer here. Both buildings are probably going to self-destruct. We have 7 minutes to run. If he doesn't want to die, then rush out as fast as possible. Over.